First of all, let us put our palms together and pay our veneration to our Supreme Buddha, the Supreme Teacher for all of us. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Let us also pay our tribute, our gratitude and honor to our late Chief Sri Dhammananda Nayaka Mahathera, who started this tradition of Friday talk and shared the Dhamma with so many people in this part of the world and many other parts of the world. Let us also pay our tribute, gratitude and honor to our late Venerable Dr. Madhavala Punnaji Mahathero for giving us such an inspiring teachings, an example and guidance to deepen our practice. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Thank you for this invitation and introduction, and I'm so glad to be back in Buddhist Maha Vihara after 3 years. I think last time I was here in 2019, we had the retreat and other talks, and so we all went through the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm so glad that we all cope with it, and now we are post-pandemic situation, of course, with many other difficulties and challenges. But I'm glad that to be back. I really missed my visits to Buddhist Maha Vihara and meeting this Dhamma and peace-loving people here. So it's such a great pleasure to be here again. And again, although we are post-pandemic situation, then just after that, we are facing many other adversities, including economic adversities and also conflicts, and on the top of that, natural disasters. So I think these situations happening around the world invites us to reflect on how we understand these things and how we respond to those things as Buddhists. So today we will spend some time on exploring the teachings of the Buddha that are related to natural disasters and how we can understand them and how we can respond to those difficult experiences that we all are going through. I think before we talk about natural disasters, as you know, as Brother Leslie mentioned, the situation in Turkey and Syria is very, very bad. Many thousands of lives have been lost. But at the same time, people who are surviving are going through such difficult time in this very difficult weather conditions, and many people are still homeless and have no proper care and even access to food and medicine, and there are many children who have lost their parents and many family members who are grieving the loss of their family members. So maybe before we start our talk, let us spend 1 minute with empathizing their suffering and giving our best, sending our good wishes, our compassion and loving kindness to all the victims, and genuinely being in one with them. So let us take this moment and take a deep breath and just feel that many have lost the opportunity to breathe like this. And even though people who have survived to breathe, they are breathing heavily with the loss of their beloved ones and with all the difficulties. Let us take the moment to feel the pain, the suffering that they are going through, and genuinely wish, may they find a way to come into terms with their pain. May they find wisdom and deep meaning to cope with their pain. May they receive enough support from all around the world. May they develop their resilience. May they all be able to rise above their adversities, be able to be stronger than before. May all of them be free from pains and suffering. May they be free from sadness and sorrow. May they be full of strength, hope, and courage. May they be well. And peaceful. 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 Thank you. The first truth the Buddha discovered and proclaimed is the truth of the dukkha, which is the deep sense of dissatisfaction or unsatisfactoriness that we all are going through. So in the simple language, the first truth of the Four Noble Truths is saying us that life is hard. Sometimes people like to call it life is suffering, but that's not really what the Buddha meant, right? Life is hard. Everyone is vulnerable to experience dissatisfaction, including suffering and pain, but in a larger sense, dissatisfaction. And it is hard. So on the top of the life struggles that we are all going through, we have to go through, we have to face natural disasters too. Even without natural disasters, life is already hard enough. If the environment, everything conditions is all okay, but it's still, struggle in our own life is already hard and difficult. And on the top of that, imagine, when we have to go through all these natural disasters, how hard it can be. And of course, in recently, I think Malaysia went through a lot of floodings, recently, right? And of course, Philippines, went through a lot of storms and such difficult things. And we still have the memories of tsunami, right? And so when these things are happening, like various other things like hurricanes and even volcanoes, eruptions, and recently earthquakes. And it demands us to reflect and ask these questions, why these things are happening to us. Why these things are happening to us. So when we look into these disasters from the Buddhist perspective, we can, one thing that comes to our realization is that this term disasters, the term disasters is actually our own perspective of what is happening. Otherwise, what is really happening in the world are the changes, natural changes happening. There are certain changes of the circumstances, changes of the situations. Nature keeps changing. Maybe nature is adjusting itself. And what's really happening are the changes. And when we look at from our own perspective, certain changes are favorable to us, certain changes are not favorable to us. When certain changes are not favorable to us, we call them natural disasters. So the term disaster is actually how we look at them, maybe how we frame them. Otherwise, they are simply natural events, natural occurrences and natural changes. And definitely they can bring a lot of harm and pain and suffering to so many people. But we never know the overall impact of these changes when we think about the whole cosmic system. Maybe cosmic system needs readjustment from time to time. Unfortunately, certain adjustments, certain changes are not in favor of certain groups of people. And so that is what is happening. So the disaster is our own perspective, how we look at them. Otherwise, they are simply natural occurrences. So when we look at these changes in that way, the Buddhist wisdom, the teachings of the Buddha, the Buddhist texts are guiding us to use this, what you call natural disasters, maybe in a broader sense, natural events or occurrences. We can use it for two purposes. And one is to use these natural disasters as an opportunity to understand the true nature of reality, to understand the real truth behind our existence. Natural disasters as an opportunity, as a manifestation of the true nature of reality, and then develop our wisdom, and then eventually our equanimity towards them. That's one way. The second way that we can look at the natural disasters from the Buddhist perspective is to use it as an opportunity to develop our compassion. Develop our compassion to help each other, to reach out to others, and then use our time and our resources and our energy to be helpful to others, because any natural disasters create an opportunity for us to be helpful. So being helpful to someone is a great opportunity. And the opportunity, so natural disaster creates such a vacuum, such an opportunity, so we can be of help. Our time can be a help, and our little bit of our donation can be a big help. So it creates that opportunity. So use that opportunity as to be compassionate and develop our compassion, express our compassion, and also an opportunity to start new. Because every destruction or collapse is an opportunity for a new reconstruction. So it's also an opportunity for us to start new, building new, and also let go of the old stuff. Sometimes we are too attached to our old way of living, too attached to our old places. Difficult to let go of them. Difficult to find a new way of doing things. But when everything collapses, you have no choice other than rebuild and start new. So sometimes those disasters and distractions is a way for us to start new. So that's also one way we can relate to our natural disasters. So based on that, Let's start with the first one. How we can use natural disasters as an opportunity to deepen our understanding of the reality. As a moment that, the true nature of reality is like manifesting itself and then, like appearing in front of our eyes. So to use our natural disaster in that sense, we can use the teachings of the Buddha, I would say the Buddhist teachings of the 5 natural laws. So we find 5 natural laws in the Buddhist literature as governing laws of the world, how anything in this world is occurring. So there are 5 natural laws. Actually, these 5 natural laws are found in the Buddhist commentaries. But when you read the early discourses of the Buddha, we find some references to some of these orders, some of these laws, particularly the Dhamma Niyama. Even we find a sutta called Dhamma Niyama Sutta, where Buddha described the most underlying principle of everything. But what is happening in the commentaries is more like a synthesis of many scattered teachings of the Buddha and then organize them into 5 natural laws. So understanding these 5 natural laws is helpful for us to understand what is happening in the world. Particularly, it's helping us understand our misconceptions about the natural disasters. Because whenever natural disaster happens, people, try to interpret it as a punishment of an almighty, divine power. It's a punishment. So as Buddhists, we usually put the blame to karma, right? And we tend to look at all this situation as the ripening of bad karma. But when you understand the 5 natural laws, we have a broad understanding that there are 5 natural laws occurring there, and karma is only one natural law. So therefore, we cannot put the burden of all the disasters on karma. So let's try to be familiar with these 5 natural laws. The first law is called Utu Niyama, which is the law of the seasons. Law of the seasons, or seasonal laws. So the earth is rotating around the sun, and then the whole galaxy is moving, and because of that rotation and then of the earth, and there are different seasons. So the things occur in this world, or maybe there can be natural occurrences in this world based on these seasons. Change of the temperature and occurrence of different different vegetations and changes in the organic world, and can happen due to changes of the seasons. And of course, in this part of the world, we don't notice big difference in the seasons, but we can see in many other parts of the world, when season changes, there are so many changes happening, including certain diseases, and because it's affecting the human bodies too. So that is one law, seasonal law. Earth is moving and Earth is rotating by itself, and those changes bring about certain changes in the temperature, and those changes to temperature bring about different occurrences, and that's occurring as an independent natural law, and we all have to face that. Any phenomena related to weather and climate is related to this. So climate changes, weather changes, and then maybe some disasters happening due to change in the climate and weather is according to this law. It's a seasonal law, independent law, the physical law. The second law is called Bija Niyama, the law of the seeds. Or seeds, like law of the seeds. We can also call it biological law. which means that that is an organic, the law that governs the organisms. So the Utuniyam, the previous law, the seasonal law, is applicable to both organic and inorganic world, physics. But the Bijaniyama, which is the biological law, is the law of the organic world. Seeds has certain potentials to give rise to certain kinds of trees, and then every organism has its own nature, and every organism has its own lifespan. And as human beings, we are also governed by the seeds. That means our seeds are our genes, that we got from our parents and our ancestors. So the nature of our body, and maybe certain diseases and certain strengths, and our color and many things in our body is governed by the genes that we receive from our ancestors. So that's whole different law, biological law, and the length of our life, if it's not disrupted by a special karma or maybe accident, and the length of our life is decided by the genes. Our genetic makeup allow us to live only maybe close to 100 years. Our genes doesn't allow us to live 500 years, for example. Maybe certain other genes may allow creatures to live few hundred years, but not our genes. So our lifespan is governed by that genetic that genes. So that's biological law. And other animals have their own limitation of lifespan. A tree has its own limitation, and then and also the possibilities. So that is biological law. And then the third law is called the Kamma Niyama, which is the law of the volitional actions. So we have this law governing the both organic and inorganic universe, which is this law of the seasons, and then law that governs only organic world, which is the Bija Niyama, the law of the seeds or biological law. And then we have more psychological law, which is the Kamma Niyama, which means all our volitional actions has the potential to leave kind of seeds in our consciousness, which has the potential to give rise to similar results to us sooner or later. So the karma, which means our volitional actions, has the power to leave traces in our consciousness that has the power to yield or maybe attract certain results, certain consequences to our life. But karma doesn't mean that they are definitely going to have consequences. Karma is simply potentials that we create in our consciousness. They may come to ripen, and they may not come to ripen, if there are no supporting conditions around us. So, however, it's also a separate individual law. Our volitional actions, and then the traces that we leave behind, the traces that we collect in our consciousness as a result of all the volitional actions operate within our consciousness as a law. So the karma is not actually an external force that is affecting our life. It's more like an internal force that is attracting certain things to our life. We can understand karma more like a magnetic power. Magnets have certain power, so they can be charged in certain ways. So our volitional actions, bad or good or bad, charged our consciousness in a particular way. So we retain kind of magic, the thing inside. So the magnets attract certain things to them based on how magnets are charged. It can be charged negatively, it can be charged positively. In the same way, when we perform our volitional actions, thoughtful, deliberate actions, we charged our consciousness. So as a result, different situation can be attracted to us. Some people can be attracted to us. If you have good karma, good people can be attracted to you. If you have bad karma, really bad people can come to you. Or maybe you will be drawn to that situations. You feel like going to that fight that's happening over there, and you almost feel like being a part of this and being hit by someone. You feel drawn to that situation. So this magnetic power inside you is drawn to you to different situations, and certain situation may be attracted to you. That's how the karma operates. So that's volitional, the law of the volitional actions operating inside us as one natural law. We also need to think about mainly karma is individual, because it's a volition, right? The volition is very individual. But it is also possible that we create collective karma as a group. We make decisions individually. Sometimes we make decisions as a group. So when you make decisions as a group, as a community, and every individual has become a part of that, sometimes you become a part of that decision by being silent, giving your consent and approving that decision, and then we become a part of a collective karma. So if as a group, if we decide to discriminate another group, and if we approve it, if we at least be silent, and allowing it to happen, then you are creating a collective karma as a group. So there are also collective karmas in the sense, of course, our participation, degree of our participation can be different, although we do it as a group. Maybe a wholesome act. You organize a meritorious event as a group, and then you are a part of a collective karma. And you are generating good karma. Whatever benefits that group is doing to others, and you are being part of that, you approve it, and you contribute to it, and you are part of that collective karma. But again, our degree of participation can be different. So based on our degree of participation, our collective karma will be different from person to person. So when we think about natural disasters and calamities, sometimes in certain cases, the collective karma can be responsible for certain events happening to us as a group, and so we need to think about that collective karma too. And then that is the third law. How many laws do we have learned so far? 3. Seasonal law, biological law, and the karma, law of the karma, which is the law of the volitional actions. And the fourth one is called Chitta Niyama, the law of the mind. You can simply call it psychological law. And this is explained specifically as actually how our mind operates when our mind understands the world, how our mind interprets the world. Basically, the Chitta Niyama is explained in most cases as the cognitive function, how we cognize the world. We cognize the world through our senses. There's a particular order how our mind operates when we make sense of the world. When we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, our sensory organs bring certain sensory data to our mind, and that's a particular way our mind processes that sensory data. First we sense them, and then we interpret them, and we bring our memories to them. There's a particular order how this sensory process is happening. It happens according to a law. As long as we have sensory organs, you cannot stay without seeing things. And you cannot stay without interpreting those things. So those things are going to happen following a particular order and law. As long as your sensory organs are functioning, as long as we have memories within you, and then that mental, the sensory process going to occur, following a particular order, and is explained in detail in the suttas and particularly in the Abhidhammas. There are 17 steps that's going to happen, in a particular order. And whenever you encounter any sensory, data. Whenever you see things, smell things, taste things, hear things, and that process is going to happen. And of course, if you are mindful, we can introduce changes. And that's what we do in meditation. We alter the habitual process of how we interpret the world. And we change it by being more mindful and observing how our previous memories is influencing our new experiences. We observe it and we change it. But it happens in a particular order. So that's called Chitta Niyama. But at the same time, this Chitta Niyama also includes certain mental power that we can cultivate through meditation. For example, telepathy and other forms of mental, psychic powers that we can develop through meditation are also part of the Chitta Niyama. If we have deep focus of the mind, if we continuously, develop the ability to focus our mind and then purify our mind, as a result, we will enhance our capacity of our sensory organs. Right now, we can only hear the sounds of certain range. When we develop our focus of the mind and deep samadhi, we can enhance that range to hear more sounds. Whether you want to hear more sounds or not is up to you. If you have enough troubles with the current range, maybe you have to rethink whether you want to hear more sounds. But that's going to happen. Those powers can be developed when we develop the focus of our mind. So that's the part of the Chitta Niyama. And the last law is called Dhamma Niyama. You can call it the law of the Dhamma, maybe the law of the norm. Law of the norm. And this Dhamma Niyama is explained in two different ways in the Buddhist text. One way it is explained is that special phenomena that can occur with regard to different life events of the Buddha. When a special person is born in this world, like a supreme Buddha, it's a special occasion to the whole world, because the whole world is going to be changed after that. If the appearance of the Buddha, the destiny of all living beings, and also the life of beings in all realms is going to be changed forever, because it's such a big, impactful occurrence. So therefore, when a bodhisattva is born, when Buddha renounces life, when the bodhisattva renounces life, and Buddha attains his enlightenment, and when he gives his first teachings, in these special occasions, there are certain natural phenomena that's going to occur. Sometimes even shaking of the earth, and sometimes different changes in the nature, like in more blossomings of the flowers. So Dhamma Niyama is explained in certain texts as these special occurrences happening with regard to life events of a special person like the Supreme Buddha. But there is also another explanation, particularly in the suttas we find what the Buddha means by Dhamma Niyama is like a most fundamental law that is operating in the world, that is impermanence. Because on the top of all this, underlying all this law, like seasonal law, biological law, karma, the law of the karma, law of the mind, underlying all this law is the most fundamental, basic law that is things are changing. So the three characteristics: impermanence, and then unsatisfactoriness, and then no owner, no ownership, and then non-self, are given as the Dhamma law. And it is said in the Dhamma Niyama Sutta, whether the Buddha appears in the world or not, this law are there. The only what is happening is that when Buddha appeared in the world, the Buddha discovered it and then proclaimed it. So the impermanence and what you call the three characteristics of existence is the most fundamental law underlying everything. That is called Dhamma Niyama. So those are the 5 laws that is operating in the world. Any occurrence happening in the world is happening due to one or combinations of these laws. So when it comes to natural disasters, actually natural events, those events can be due to the seasonal law, can be due to biological law. Karma is playing a part, but karma is not solely responsible for any events happening in the world. In most cases, there are combination of many laws. And so therefore, when natural disasters happen, when many people die as a result of that, we cannot say that, oh, that is their bad karma. It's a very inappropriate way of understanding. It doesn't even allow us to develop our compassion, because we justify the suffering of this disaster. You don't have to have bad karma in order to face earthquake, because as long as you are living on earth keeps changing and shifting itself. You are under that condition. And therefore you cannot blame, or we cannot blame the victims of those natural disasters. We deeply have to have compassion for them. There can be situations like this, like the people living in different parts of the world, and for some reason they plan a trip to go to a particular place on that particular day, and when they visit that place on that specific day, earthquakes happen. So that could be, some influence from the karma, law of the karma, because they are living in a completely different place. They just plan and be there on that time when this disaster happened. But people who are living in that place all along in their life, and they has to face that calamity, disaster. So that doesn't mean that they all are having any bad karma. They just are facing the natural law of these seasons and changes happening on earth and the weather. So therefore, we have to understand natural disasters in that sense. So there are 5 natural laws operating in the world. Sometimes they can combine, but particular natural disasters are the works of the nature. And as I told you earlier, they are simply natural events. Some events, some changes are not in our favor, so we call them disasters. But we just have to accept it, and that's a part of the nature. The truth of the reality is that the world does not conform to our desires and our wishes. World operates by itself following these 5 natural laws. The only law that we can have some control is the karma. That's the only law that we can have some control, because we are the one who produce volitional actions. We still have the power to volitionally act and decide and select and choose. That's the law that we have some control. And so the world operates following these natural laws, and those laws does not necessarily conform to our wishes and our desires. And therefore, sometimes, so we need to understand that we are living in a dynamic universe. The Dhamma Niyama, which is like impermanence. We are living in an impermanent world, shifting and changing all the time. And so we need to develop this attitude of equanimity and acceptance. And some changes we embrace, some changes we reject or we rebel against. But with deep understanding, we need to understand that we are living in a changing, shifting, dynamic world. Some changes are good for us, some changes are not good for us. We just have to accept them with equanimity and find ways to be with them. So sometimes Earth's tectonic plates shifts. So what to do, right? What to do? We are living on earth. We have to be respectful to this earth. We have to be grateful to this earth for, holding us, carrying us, and giving us all the sustenance that we need. Sometimes when the earth needs to adjust itself, we also have to accept it. What to do, right? And then develop this deep understanding. Even the earth itself, the most solid thing that we can ever, find, and this earth itself, most solid thing is also not that solid at the end. So deeply understand how impermanent is the world that we are living in. So we cannot take anything for granted. There's no solidity in the real sense. And then develop that deep understanding. And then what we can do is the only refuge we can have is not the external refuge, actually internal refuge that we can develop through deep wisdom and deep understanding, and developing this equanimity and acceptance is the only refuge that we can have. And then what we can also find another statement, to understand this. There's an interesting sutta called Rattapala Sutta in the Middle Length Discourses. He's a rich. He was a son of a very rich family. So when he wanted to become a monk, he listened to the teachings of the Buddha and understood the true nature of reality. He quickly really wanted to renounce, and his parents didn't give him the permission, and then he has to rebel himself, and then he went on hunger strike to become a monk. And then family decided ultimately, if we do not let him, become a monk, he will die. At least if we let him become a monk, at least we can see him. So they ultimately allow him to become a monk. It's an interesting story, but we don't have enough time to explain everything here. But after he became a monk, the king of the country came to know that this young man of his rich family became a monk, and he wanted to understand why he became a monk. So the king went to this the young monk and said that usually people become ascetics, people become renunciants when they lost their wealth, when they are bankrupt, they become ascetics. And when you lost all the relatives and family, and you become an ascetic. When you lost your health, you become a relative, or you become an ascetic. But in your case, you haven't lost any of these things. Why you want to become a monk? And he said that when I was listening to the Buddha gave 4 summaries of the world, 4 summaries of the reality of the world. After listening to that, I decided to become a monk. This 4 summary says that Buddha said that this world is unstable. This world is unstable. It's not solid. This world is unstable, and also it is passing away gradually. And that is one summary of the world. Now, the nature of the world is unstable and it is passing away. And second is that this world has no shelter. No shelter and no savior or protector. And no one dares to shelter us, give us protection, because everyone is growing old, everyone is getting sick, and who is there to protect us? And even our most beloved ones cannot prevent us from growing old. Right? So who is this protector and savior? And then also the other one, there's no owner in the real sense of this world. We have to leave behind everything that we claim ownership one day. So there's no owner in the real sense. We don't own anything in the world in a real sense. Maybe we are renting things. And that's the third summary. The fourth summary is that the world is a slave of craving. It is impossible to satisfy our desires, and we are always slaves to our craving. When I hear those 4 summaries given by the Buddha, I thought that no matter how much wealth, how much power I have, I'm still unprotected. Listen to these things. I decided to find true refuge. True refuge is not found in this external world. True refuge is found within inside me, and the way to find that inner refuge is to become a monk. And of course, we can find that refuge even without becoming a monk if you dedicate it, to this practice. In this case, that is how he answered. So these natural disasters kind of helping us to understand there's no shelter, there's no protector in the real sense from the external world. These natural orders, work, and then we are just living in this unstable world. The only refuge you can find is the inner refuge that we can develop through understanding and development of our own mind. So that is how we can use the natural disasters as an opportunity to deepen our understanding and to understand the real nature of the world. Sometimes everything is okay, everything is smooth. We take everything for granted. We can be fooled by the apparent stability, and then we forget to develop our inner refuge. We tend to rely more on the external conditions. But now we realize that it is not that stable. When the earth is moving, where you are going to run, where are you going to stand? Right? No place to stand, right? So that's the world that we live in. That's the reality. The only refuge, only stability that we can develop is within ourselves. So natural disasters, help us to have this realization. Is opening this true reality to us. It's brute reality, but that's the way the world is. That's one way we can use the natural disaster. But at the same time, we need to understand that some natural changes happening in the world is also happening due to the influence of our human minds. And particularly, there are a few discourses of the Buddha where Buddha described how human emotions influence the nature. For example, in the Chakravarti Sihanada Sutta, where Buddha described about how human behavior, human conduct is influencing the lifespan of human beings. And it said that previously human beings have long lifespans, but then when people start to do all the wrong actions, wrong doings, their lifespans decreased, and then their natural resources also decreased. So the human emotions, the human virtues are influencing the working of the nature. It's influencing the weather. Particularly, there's also saying that particularly the virtues of the rulers are impacting the working of the nature. Those days, ancient, not now, ancient times, when there's a famine there's some drought in the country, when there's some natural disasters, they go to the king and complain that your virtues are not perfect. That is why we get these calamities. So he will go and consult the monks and religious experts and try to establish himself in morality. He will go for retreats. The kings will go for retreats and follow special, spiritual practices in order to heal the country. Unfortunately, those things are not happening now, right? Yeah, but those days people used to complain the kings for natural disasters because their lack of morality can cause natural disasters according to their belief. So those days, there is some connection, and particularly the emotions of human beings. And if you read the Aganya Sutta, where Buddha described the evolution of this human life on this planet, and Buddha said that originally our planets were full of natural resources and it was easy for people to consume things. We do not need to even cook because they have a food occurring naturally. They have a kind of rice that you can just go and eat and you don't have to work hard to cook. And there were so many other such natural resources. And what happened when people start to eat this natural available food, delicious food, and then people grow their gross bodies, and then there were differences in the human bodies, so people start to discriminate. Oh, he look better than me, and I look better than her. So thoughts of discrimination occurs, and those delicious food disappears. And then you have to have another little bit more difficult food to prepare. And then when we have those food, and then people start to develop more craving, and they start to store food. And originally, whenever they're hungry, they go to the nature and they eat. And gradually they start to store this, store up this food. And as a result, those food also disappeared. I mean, the fundamental message is that our human emotions, human virtues, influence the nature and influence the natural resources. There's interaction between human virtues and emotion and the work of the nature. The more immoral we are, the harder for us to satisfy our needs through natural resources. And the more refined, more virtuous we are, the nature is benefiting us. Nature is helping us to get our needs. So therefore, there's an interaction in that way. So the lesson we can learn is actually, when these natural disasters happening, we need to question the virtues of human beings and mental states of our human beings, because our thoughts, our continuous thoughts occurring in our minds, our thoughts are forms of energy. They actually, of course, think about the brain. Our thoughts are really electric, producing, certain, electric waves, in the brain. But the thoughts are forms of energies. When millions of people are generating, let's say, negative thoughts, it's going to definitely affect the whole environment and atmosphere. So when sometime when these natural disasters happening, we need to rethink and maybe encourage our community to be watchful of our thoughts and develop wholesome thoughts that can influence nature in a positive way, because there's such an interaction too. And then, of course, our desires, our craving can also lead us to have overconsumption. And when we overconsume our natural resources, it definitely creates, many other, disasters. Of course, today we are experiencing, climate change, and then, the global warming, and many of those things are a result of overconsumption, that is a result of human greed. So therefore, certain natural disasters are actually caused by human beings because of the overconsumption and even like environmental destruction that we are doing to consume a lot. So the disaster, I remember actually the Venerable our late Chief Venerable Kesri Dhammananda Nayaka Mahathera, and he gave a nice talk and presentation after the tsunami, in 2004. And he said that these natural disasters are reminding us to be moderate in our consumption. So he said that, because we are not consuming natural resources in moderation, and we are creating these situations to have more natural disasters. So he wanted us to rethink, of our consumption when we encounter natural disasters. And sometimes certain luxuries that we are experiencing today, maybe our ability to buy some products for a cheaper price. It could be a result of some exploitation happening somewhere. Some people are producing things under improper infrastructure, and then those things can create more disasters and damages too. So we have to really think about whenever we are consuming in a larger scale, and that is changing the balance of the nature. And that can create opportunity for natural disasters too. So, of course, there are 5 natural laws operating over there. We will not be able to fully control the natural disasters, but there's also room for us as human beings to change this, maybe reduce the possibility of natural disasters by developing more wholesome thoughts, impacting the natural world in a positive way with our wholesome thoughts like loving kindness, and also in being in moderation of our consumption, so then we will help the natural world to be in balance. So that's one way. So but most important way that we can use our natural disasters is using them as an opportunity to be compassionate, to express our compassion. So whenever there's a natural disaster, and it is creating a chance for us to share whatever we have and be helpful with our time, with our resources, and then even a simple help that we are doing can be a big help, big change for others. So whenever there's a natural disaster, we have to use them as an opportunity. Of course, those disasters in a small scale or maybe large scale is going to happen. It's going to happen somewhere in the world. So those moments, those occurrences are providing us a very good opportunity for us to practice compassion. And we need to feel the pain of the others. We need to feel the suffering of the others to understand deeply the nature of human life. And even it also helps us to understand the value of our human life. We understand how vulnerable are our human lives and how impermanent are of our human lives. Only when we understand the vulnerability and then fragility of our human lives, we understand the preciousness of our human life. So we start to appreciate every moment. Those earthquakes can happen anywhere on this planet. And the reason that we are alive, reason that we are not victims of such a disaster is that that we should be helpers of those victims. And since we are not victims, and we should be helpers of the victims. So our life was saved because we should be there to help those victims. So we should use those disasters as an opportunity. And even any moment we encounter suffering of any person, individual situation, is also is an opportunity for us to be compassionate and helpful. Because sometimes, although we have resources, although we have the capacities, we will not be able to be helpful to others. Sometimes, and it's really important, that our money and our resources and our time is given to the best use of that, for the best benefit. I mean, when these our time and our resources are most needed, it's very rare we find an opportunity that our resources, our money, and our time is given to the most needed person, the most needed place. When you find such an opportunity, it's a great thing, right? Let's say you have a book that is sitting on your book rack for many years, and you even do not touch it, and you found a child who is actually studying for an exam, and that book is what that child needs. If you get an opportunity to donate that book to that child, that will make a big difference in that child's life. How wonderful it is that, right? So in the same way, when natural disaster is occurring somewhere, it gives such an opportunity for us that our time, our energy, our resources are put into best use. And we can be fully satisfied with that. So let us use those natural disasters to improve our compassion. And sometimes, even though we may not be able to directly and physically help, for example, we may not be able to travel to Turkey to help those victims, but We can help in different ways, and of course by donating, and also spreading, and encouraging others to do that. But if we cannot do any of those things, we can at least spend time for them. We can chant for them. We can radiate our loving kindness towards them. We can produce more wholesome thoughts towards them. In our daily chanting, in our daily recitation, our daily practice, we can dedicate a specific time, few minutes, to think about all the victims of natural disasters and chant for them and wish them well-being, wish them solace, wish them some relief. So that's one way we can do it. I think we should have a chanting in our daily, section. We had to have a section in our chanting, in our daily practice, daily devotional chanting, to dedicate it to people who are, going through some form of natural calamities. All around the world, there are wildfires happening in California, and there are certain, unexpected weather conditions occurring in some other parts of the world. There's always, some kind of eruptions happening somewhere in the world. So, every month there could be some, natural disasters happening in somewhere in the world. So we should have a chanting for those victims. So every day we think about them, we empathize with them, we understand the fragility and vulnerability of human life, and that will encourage us to understand the preciousness of our life, and that will be an encouragement for us to practice the Dhamma more and more. Because we understand this every day is precious, it's a gift, and we will be committed to practice more Dhamma as a result. So that is how we can use natural disasters. So the Buddhist perspective on natural disasters is to understand these the disasters are simple natural occurrences, natural events occurring in the world following the four natural orders, four natural laws. Some are favorable to us as human beings, some occurrences are not favorable to us. But we just have to accept them and use them as opportunities to understand the true nature of reality and understand the instability of the world, impermanence of the world, and then using it to turn ourselves into develop inner refuge rather than depending on the external situations, and then use it as an opportunity to develop our compassion and continue to practice the Dhamma more and more, as an encouragement for us to commit to this practice more and more. So I hope that we will use every natural disasters, not to our disaster, but not to our detriment, but to our well-being, to ourselves and also to all living beings. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so let's have a few minutes for questions and maybe comments or questions. An experience of the natural disasters happened here, or did you do any relief services?
Yeah, when there was flooding 2 years ago, Bhante.
Okay.
Yeah, we organized relief clothes and food on the east coast of Malaysia.
East Coast, yeah.
Due to heavy rain. Okay, the one question, I don't know whether it's relevant, but I think it's a theory. I don't know whether it's true. They say everything has got an order. It's a balance, right? So when disasters occur, it's to put the balance back. So that maybe the population of the world is now, 8 billion or 9 billion, right? We are getting overpopulated. So it's the ways of nature to reduce the population naturally. I don't know. Is that a?
Yeah, I think.
Is that a?
I think everything is in a struggle between imbalance and balance. So of course, every energy, every phenomena is trying to achieve the balance, but it's also terribly becoming imbalanced. This is, our life. The existence is the struggle between balance and imbalance. Yes, that is definitely correct. But I think earthquake is simply the planet is adjusting itself. Maybe I don't know about the overpopulation. Maybe certain like pandemic. Certain diseases could be certain effort to balance the life. But there are certain like a physical, like I think the earthquake is mainly the occurrence in the planet, right? But some occurrences happening in the organic world, like bacteria and viruses, could be, I don't know. But we need to find balance in order to survive. But it's always going to imbalance and going to balance. This is a struggle.
Yeah. Because there's only so many resources or so much resources on Earth, right?
Yes.
So when the population of not just human beings, but plants, animals, whatever it is, there's an overpopulation, which means there's a fight for the resources in terms of food and water.
I think we see this in other species, right?
Yeah.
When certain other species are overpopulated, there's a natural cause will occur and balance that population. Same thing can happen to human beings too, Sometimes we are a little bit too smart to overcome them. We produce vaccines.
Yeah.
Maybe we are changing natural order.
Yeah.
But I think it's we need to find balance. Some calamities could be part of that balancing act.
Yeah, I think we can understand about earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis and whatever. It's generally natural.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like in Malaysia, flooding is supposed to be natural, but actually the source of it is greed. People are doing logging, overlogging the forest and all that, and the rivers get silted, and then it becomes a natural disaster. At the end of the day,
but they're not real natural.
Yeah,
they're really man-made.
Yeah, man-made because of greed. But so, where does that fall into the 5 niyamas?
5 niyamas, right? Yeah. Maybe the karma niyama. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Because the end result is, of course, a natural disaster. There's flooding, people's lives are lost and property is damaged. But the actual cause is, something else that causes it, actually,
Even the global warming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. There can be natural. There are natural causes also that increase the warmth of the planet, but there are many human actions also that increase the warmth. Yeah.
There was a recent disaster happening in the island, landslide, killing a lot of people and came there. Supposed to be so natural disaster. Actually, it's anything. People drilling the same problem in the land and causing the
people are clearing the land and causing the landslide to happen.
So the landslides is not that naturally caused, but it's the result of human
greed.
Lots of lives that were lost in the landslide.
But sometimes the people who are responsible may not be the victims of the disaster. That's a sad thing, right? Usually, the economically, challenged people are the ones who are becoming, victims most of the time.
Where the people go to the king and ask the question why the
Naturally. Why we have this drought here?
in our country, what action you are going to take? So the king go and take suggestion from the monk and do some kind of activities in order to bring back the country. But I think, as you said, now that's not happening, and we find more human emotions. That's what making so many like disasters by human more than natural disaster. Why humans in generally, we are not unable to getting trapped of our emotions. Like still, we know we are, but still, at some point, we are unable to overcome that emotions. So, how to break through the point where we lose our control? We want to control, but at some point, we are out of control, and it's, as you said, we have to see our inner self rather than pointing outside. Maybe if I fix 1% of my inner, I think that's the best thing I can give to the world.
Yes.
Rather than saying the other person, I feel it's okay if I can fix on myself that 1%, maybe not 100%, at least 1%. So how can I fix that break point?
Yeah, I think it's definitely our emotions and our virtues, our conduct affects the natural world, and also, disasters can happen. So how, your question is that why, as human beings, we are not capable of managing our negative thoughts, right? And then, and how we can do it, right? I think it's the education. Sometimes those natural disasters, like, pandemics, for example, reveal certain truths about our human life, and, people learn some lessons from that. But problem is that people easily forget those lessons, right? I think it's the education, through education we can change. I'm a little bit hopeful of the younger generations, because I think particularly younger generations are more sensitive to the environmental distractions, and they are becoming more, they want to have more responsible behavior, so they're talking about it, hopefully. And then there are also a lot of education about it, but some countries we may not have that. But I think if you give more education of what is really happening to the earth, and what is really happening, and then what is really happening among the human societies, and maybe still education system does not have much education on human mind. We still lack that. So maybe some Buddhist wisdom, and then we need to impart that Buddhist wisdom to our younger generation if we really understand what is true happiness. Because right now, happiness is always about consuming as much as you can. So the capitalism is encouraging to consume as much as you can, and then as a result, they are doing all these things for that. So one hand, in our younger generations are getting to know more about the harm that we are doing to the nature and environment. They are becoming more responsible and sensitive about that. I think we need to add that, component of, how we can be happy without having much material resources. And, so if we can educate younger generation on that aspect, I think we can break this repetitive system, hopefully.
But
yeah, I think education is the solution.
But you said the responsible person is not actually getting part of the victim. So if that's the case, then how we can educate, like if we do the mistake, we will be getting punished. We must have some evidence to prove.
Some evidence to prove that, this.
No, sometimes even I feel like if the karma is quick enough, if the person is doing mistake, if he is getting punished, okay, see, this is the result. You should not do mistake.
Yeah, I think we should focus not more on the result that we are getting later. If we can educate people that, let's say they are doing a lot of environmental destruction, earning a lot of wealth, and they think that that will satisfy them and that will make them happy. So if we can educate them, even when you right there, when you like earn whatever wealth and power, inside you are not really happy. So if we can educate them, on that, because now they have a misguided belief that and when they have more power, more wealth, more money, they feel happier. But maybe we should help them to realize that that's not the case. The happiest people in this world are not the rich people. But they don't understand it. That's where we have to educate them.
I was about to tell the same. Yeah. Making others to realize is quite challenging.
They're actually wasting their time and wasting the resources and creating such harm without themselves being happy also. They're not reaching their own selfish goal also by doing that. Ultimately they are suffering too. Both are suffering, right?
Thank you, Bhante.
Yes, brother?
Yes, Bhante. How about regarding the human ignorance? Because all this problem, like we see on the pandemic and during the so-called the pandemic time, there are millions of people that they ignore all the scientific so-called research or evidence or whatsoever, and then they just go on their own will and deliberately ignore all the vaccine or whatsoever they call for, and then they get all the so-called bad result in the certain area, especially even in America, in the so-called the Christian strong base, like in the central, that are having the biggest that kind of disaster to them. But this kind of human ignorance, because like the greenhouse gases, America produce the most, and then yet some of the president, they say no, they want to go for the capitalism, spend more, and then no need to pay any tax. That's kind of like their belief on their own will, and then they cause other country to suffer.
So your question is that how to help people to come out of their ignorance. That's the most difficult thing to do because they don't believe that they are ignorant. When you don't know that you are ignorant, and then how you can change it, right? So if we know that we don't know, that's the beginning of the improvement, And if they think that they know, that's we are stuck there. So it's really challenging how to help people to come out from their ignorance. Maybe we have to wait until they learn their own lessons, right? I don't know how long it will take. Right? We can try to educate them, But the problem is that, it's not really, not only the ignorance, but also the attachment to their views. Dogmatism. Sometimes, even though they have, enough evidence, maybe counter evidence, they will not still accept that, because they are so attached, so dogmatic about their own views. This is the, Buddha said that, and we have attachment, different forms of attachment, attachment to sensual pleasures, attachment to the view of the self, and also attachment to views. And Buddha said that attachment to views are more dangerous than attachment to sensual pleasure. I think that is what we are experiencing, nowadays, in the political, environments. They are so attached to their views and they develop their own identity based on that view. It's so difficult for them to come out. Maybe learning from them, we need to ask question from ourselves, which views I'm attached to. Because I can be so blinded, I can be so misguided if I attach to any view, even a good view. Yeah. So we just learn from them, and then just wish for them to come out from their ignorance. It's very difficult to help people to come out of their views and ignorant. Maybe we invite the Maitreya Buddha to come faster. Because no other teacher will be capable enough to break their ignorance. Yes. Thank you, brother. It is such a great pleasure for me to come and give talks and do these programs again. So let us now dedicate and share these merits with all our departed ones and all the other celestial beings and everyone. And we will again think about our late Chief Kesri Dhammananda Nayaka Mahathera, and also our beloved teacher, Most Venerable Dr. Madhavala Punnaji Mahathera, and all other the monks who have helped us in our spiritual journey. Let us share these merits with them. Let us wish them to continue their journey towards the enlightenment, and then help and guide us along the way, and wishing them all the smooth journey towards the enlightenment. And also sharing these merits with all our departed parents and relatives, and then the other ancestors, people who helped built this temple, and share the merits with all of them. May they be benefited from these merits. May they be well and happy and peaceful wherever they may be. Idang mi nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang mi nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang mi nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Let us also share these merits with all other living beings. If there's any celestial being or other being who would like to share this merit, may he or she do so. May all living beings share our merits. May all living beings be well, happy, and peaceful. Ettavata che amhi sambhatang punya sampadam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata che amhi sambhatang punya sampadam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Ettavata che amhi sambhatang punya sampadam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. Wish you a very good night and peaceful rest.